G'day, my name's Lloyd Grollam and I'm the Aussie pastor, and here I am down at beautiful, quintessential, stunning Manly Beach, one of the best beaches in all of Sydney and all of Australia. And this beach and me, our family, it has history. You see, I grew up on a dairy farm, but every Christmas, would you believe it, our church owned a block of flats up there on that hill, and every Christmas my dad, he would book one of the apartments out and we'd come here for our holidays, and oh, did we have a good time. It was magnificent. And I suppose for my dad, it was a great de-stressor. This is our beach. And so when my kids grew up, I also brought them to this beach. Still do. Let me show you what we do now. This is where we end up, the Manly Corso. We come down here on a Saturday night. I've had a big day preaching. Girls have been at church with me, my daughters, my wife and my two sons. And we come down here to Manly on a Saturday night. Doesn't matter if it's cold. If it's cold, all the better. And we walk down the Corso and we always end up here eating a kebab together as family. It is beautiful, and for me as a pastor, it's a great de-stressor with family. You know, golf for me is not a stress reliever, it's a stress creator. Yeah, I was hamming it up a bit there. I can hit the golf ball, but when I hit the thing, it skewers off 90 degrees to where I actually am. It's just an awful game. And when I go to play it with my friends, I got to take about 150, 200, 300 balls because I just lose them in the dozens and dozens. Golf and me don't get on, but there are a lot of people that play golf to get rid of stress. Stress reliever? I don't think so. You know, whether you're going down to the beach with your family, whether you're going on holidays to Bali, or whether you're playing golf, whatever you're doing, we are, as a culture and a society, desperately trying to escape stress. And no wonder. Stress is a big deal. It's a big killer. It's a big spoiler of life in our culture. So what do? Well, don't play golf. What I do, there's only one thing I've been ever able to tell people that effectively gets rid of stress. Only one thing, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So come on, let's go back to the studio. It's just up the road from here, and I'll share with you what I do to relieve stress in my life so I can live in sanity. And yeah, I'm going to say it again, it's not golf. Just before we get to the studio, this is the cemetery just over the road from my place. And it's important to this program and to this subject because you know what? There are a lot more people in here than you think because they never ever learnt to deal with stress. Stress is a killer. And that's why what I'm about to share with you is so important, and most people don't get it. So come on, let's get to the studio. Let's look at this subject. Stress relief and sport, they kind of go hand in hand, and I have always enjoyed playing sport. Maybe why I'm not a real high-stress person. My wife actually says one of the strengths I do have, maybe one of the few strengths I do have, is that I am a stress sort of free person. Because I've been into sport almost all my life. I play tennis, I play squash, love squash. Used to play it 3-4 nights a week. I play soccer, not good at it, but I was a goalkeeper, so I enjoyed it, and you can imagine I'd be a pretty good goalkeeper. I play football, rugby league football. I was better at that. But there were two sports that I played that I was never any good at. The first one is basketball. Oh, I'll tell you what, I got some bad injuries from basketball. A knee reconstruction coming up because of basketball, ankle injuries, broken ankle, terrible injuries. And so basketball and me, and I was never any good at it either, not real coordinated to bounce that ball. And so basketball and me, it's off to the side. Although I love watching the Boomers, especially when they're beating the Tall Blacks, the Kiwis. So there's basketball, and the other one that never really got great traction with me is golf. Golf. As I was saying today, the one sport above all others that doesn't take stress away from me, it increases stress. I remember the first game of golf I ever had. I was invited out by a friend of my dad's. He actually invited my dad out to play a round of golf with him, and I came along and they gave me a set of clubs and 6 balls. You know, first hole, this golf course was on the Logan River up there in Brisbane. The first hole, I had skewered, I don't know what it is about the wood. Is that what they call it, the golf club, the wood? I don't know what it is, but every time I hit the ball, man, I can hit it. And there was a whack, a thud, and the ball would take off to the right or to the left. And by the middle of the first hole, I'd got rid of all of my 6 golf balls. My round was over. And so golf has never been a great stress relief for me. Just builds the stress. But I get how some of you are into that game and how you use it to get rid of stress in your life, and it's a good and a positive thing. But I can tell you that whether you're into golf, whether you're into squash, soccer, football, whatever you play, wherever you go, you can go on holidays to Bali, you can go on holidays to Europe, you can go to the Gold Coast. These are all great places to go, and you can get away from it, and it'll bring the stress down in your life. But no matter what you do, no matter where you go, if you don't have what I'm talking to you about today in your life, there's always going to be a level of stress that you can never, no matter how you try, you cannot get rid of it. So what is this great stress relief solution that I'm talking about? What is it that God gives us that almost the whole world takes no notice of? What is it that God gives us that is the greatest stress relief mechanism in the world for man today? I'll tell you what it is. It's the Sabbath. And it's more than the Sabbath, it's the 7th day Sabbath. Let me show you today how the 7th day Sabbath can bless you as a great stress reliever. I'll never forget that day so long ago when my dad's mate Raiden, he's got these golf balls and he hands 6 out to me as though they're precious nuggets of gold. And on the first hole, the first fairway, I had hooked and I had sliced either into the bush or into the Logan River every single ball. And man, was he stressed. I wasn't, but he was. The Sabbath and stress. This is a big subject, and it's an important one, and it's one you need to know. Now, when you go to the Sabbath, and this amazes me, I'm a Protestant Christian, and so are many of you watching this program today. And when I look at the Protestant Christian world that I belong to, it amazes me. It confuses me and perplexes me too, that somewhere, somehow, we miss the 7th day Sabbath. We who are a Bible-believing people, what is happening to us? Why? I don't know. My grandfather, he was an Adventist preacher. My dad, an Adventist preacher. My grandfather was one of these sawdust trail tent preachers where they'd go into a town here in Australia, set a big tent up. This is before television or radio, and he would preach. And he would preach the gospel. And one of his subjects was the $1,000 missing text. Guess what that was on? The Sabbath. And what he was saying, and it still hangs true today, is that the Sabbath has always been and will always be and is in the Bible. And if you can find a single text, this would be his challenge to his audience way back there, in the middle of the 20th century. This would be his challenge. He'd say, hey, if you can show me one single text in all the Bible where the Sabbath has been changed to Sunday, one single text, he said, I'll give you $1,000. You never had to pay that money out. So let's look for a moment at the Sabbath in the Bible, from beginning to end. Now you're going to have to keep up with me because I'm going to go pretty fast. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1 to 3. Right at the beginning of the world, creation. Yeah, I'm a creationist. I believe God created the world in 6 literal 24-hour solar days. I'm a creationist. In fact, if you're a Bible student, a Bible believer, you've got not much choice but to be a creationist. And right back at the beginning of the world, God creates 2 holy ordinances. They're very holy. The first one he created was marriage, where he takes a man and he takes a woman and he brings them together and he marries them. God made marriage. It's God who defines what marriage is. It belongs to him as a gift to us, a gift. And the second ordinance, holy ordinance, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1 to 3, is the Sabbath. At the beginning of the creation week, God creates the Sabbath, and he blesses it, and he sanctifies it, and he makes it holy. This is a special day, and you know what? This is long before the Jews. No such thing as Jews back then. The Sabbath made it creation for humankind. Now, let's go maybe 1, 2, 3,000 years into history. So we're making a big jump here in biblical history from creation through to the time of the Jews. Oh, what a fantastic story is this. They're a group of people, some millions, and they're in Egypt and they're slaves. They probably built a lot of the pyramids. And God says, God sends this incredible prophet. His name is Moses. And he strides into Egypt, and with God at his back, with God leading him, Moses sets the Israelites free, and the Egyptians, they'd never come in contact and encountered a God like this. And Moses takes them out into the desert, and in the desert there God comes to them. And he gives them the 10 Commandments, comes down on a mountain. It's an incredible story. You can read it in Exodus 20. And he begins to talk to them the great laws that were to govern their nation and mankind, humankind to this day. In the middle of those great laws, the fourth one, Exodus 28 to 11, God says, remember. He's not given them the Sabbath. He says, remember. This is God speaking to the Jews. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. So you can see what's happening here. Sabbath at creation. Now God's given the Sabbath to the Jews. Let's go another 1,000, 1,500 years into history to Jesus. Who is Jesus? He's God. He's Yahweh in human flesh. And he comes down to earth. And while he's walking on the earth, we know him as Jesus. The Bible tells us in Luke chapter 4, verse 16, that Jesus, every Sabbath, as his custom was, went to the synagogue and he'd get up to speak, to preach and to teach. Oh, I would have loved to have heard Jesus preach. You know, sometimes when I'm preaching, I look out there in the audience and maybe someone's had a hard week and you can see them just gently wandering off to sleep. That's not happening when Jesus is the preacher. It's not happening when Jesus is the teacher. And if you'd lived 2,000 years ago at the time of Jesus, and you'd gone to church with him, you would have had the privilege of hearing him preach and teach on the Sabbath. Jesus was, and this is biblical fact for his entire life, Jesus was a Sabbath keeper, a Sabbath celebrator, a Sabbath worship. He put the Sabbath aside as special, a day of worship between him and his God. So we've got the Sabbath at creation. We've got the Sabbath with the Jews. Now we've got the Sabbath with Jesus. What about the church that Jesus set up? Well, 6 times in the book of Acts. The book of Acts is a story about Jesus' early Christian church. 6 times in the book of Acts, we see the Bible talking about the early Christian church worshipping and celebrating Jesus and God on the Sabbath. The early Christian church, fact, was a seventh-day Sabbath-keeping church. That's a fact, fact, fact. And there's nothing in the Bible and there's nothing in history that tells you anything other than that. In fact, this Sabbath keeping that was in the early Christian church went beyond just that initial church, but into the church of the centuries afterwards. And the church, it went like wildfire. And you go to England, where the church went, to Scotland, where the church went, to Ireland, where the church went. It's a Sabbath-keeping church. You can go to India, Sabbath-keeping church. You can go up into Russia, Sabbath-keeping church. You can go down into Africa, Sabbath-keeping church, not just for a century or two, but for centuries. In fact, some of the churches, especially the English, Scottish, Irish church, they were Sabbath-keeping churches for thousands of years. Ever heard of St. Patrick? Ever heard of St. Patrick's Day? You know where they get all dressed up in green? St. Patrick, a great missionary, English boy, went to Ireland, converted the whole island. St. Patrick was a seventh-day Sabbath keeper. That is historical fact. So you've got the Sabbath at creation. You've got the Sabbath with the Jews. You've got the Sabbath with Jesus. You've got the Sabbath with the early Christian church. Let's go down to our day. Matthew 24, verse 20. You know, the end of times, hard to believe. But the Bible says the Christian church is going to come under persecution. I don't exactly know how that's going to happen. I'm not looking forward to it. Can't imagine it in Australia. But Jesus in prophecy in Matthew 24 talks about how his church, his people, will come under persecution. And one of the things he says is when you come under persecution at the end of time, right just before I come and the world ends, Jesus says you're going to have to flee. I can't imagine that. Having to leave my shed and my farm and to flee for my life. Can't imagine it. But you know, the history of the entire Christian church is a history of the church having to flee, and the peace and freedom that we have today is unparalleled in the history of the church. What we have and expect and take for normal, it's not normal. And God says, just before I come, before the earth ends, you're going to have to flee. And then he says this in Matthew 24:20. He says, pray that you won't have to flee on the Sabbath. Why? Because the Sabbath is so important that God doesn't even want you to flee when your life is on the line. That's how important the Sabbath is. There must be something to this. So look, Sabbath at creation, Sabbath with the Jews, Sabbath with Jesus, Sabbath with the early church, Sabbath with the end time church. Let me go you one more. Isaiah 66, 22, 23. We go to heaven. We come back to a new earth. And the Bible says in Isaiah 66, 22, 23, when we're into eternity, beyond this life, into eternity, we will never die. The Bible says in Isaiah 66, 22, 23, that from month to month and week to week, we will still come before God to worship him on the Sabbath. So you can start in Genesis and you can finish in Revelation. You can start at creation, you can go to eternity. The Sabbath and mankind will always be together. So what's the big deal about this Sabbath? Lloyd, what are you making such a fuss about it? Well, this is a big deal, and it starts here. Jesus in Mark chapter 2 verse 27 says this. He says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Now I want you to think about that. I'm going to read it again. Think about what Jesus is actually saying. He says the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Now, he's not saying the Sabbath is made for the Jews. He's not saying Sabbath is made for Israel. He's saying the Sabbath was made for man. That's generic to mean humanity. So what does Jesus mean? The Sabbath is made for man. 2003, I had been saving up for a long time. I went to the Ford dealer at Newcastle and I bought a BA XR8 260 kilowatt V8 Boss Falcon. Oh, it was sensational. I love that car. It was black. I'd been looking forward to it for months. You see, I had to order it. And I turned up to get this Falcon. And I remember walking into the showroom. It's one of those great memories I'll never forget until the day I die. And I walked into that showroom and there was my black BA XR8 Falcon. Oh, 260 kilowatts, just waiting for me. That car, special order, was made for me. And I remember getting in it the first time I started it up. Oh, that thing was sweet, 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 the sound of that engine. And I drove that thing out the driveway and down onto the main highway. I'll tell you what, I was as proud as the King of England. It was a day, let me tell you. And I love that car. I've had a few V8 Falcons since. I wanted to get the latest one, but just too expensive. And by the way, if there's any Ford executives out there and you're looking for someone to sponsor, I'd love to be your sponsor. Just contact me. There's the details on the screen. No, I'm joking. Did you see that Falcon was made for me? I'm not made for it. It's made for me. And it's made for me to drive and to enjoy it and to have pleasure. And the Sabbath is the same. I'm not made for the Sabbath. No, I'm not. It's made for me. So why did God make it? Why did God make the Sabbath and then give it to me? Let's look at it. Actually, I'm not joking about that Ford thing. I've got a crummy little Mazda 323, 2001. We drive around and we do our shooting in that. If there's a Ford dealer out there, we'll go around in a new XR8 and we'll put Aussie Pasta on the side and no, I'm only joking. I'm joking, Andrew, I'm joking. The Sabbath, why does it matter? What has this vehicle that Jesus has given you, the Sabbath, what can it do for you? Watch this. I want to go to a Bible text. Matthew 11:28-30. Then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." Look, go down to a railway station, sit down and just watch people. I do that sometimes. I'll go out to the airport. I used to do a lot of travel. I try not to do too much anymore. But you go out to the airport and you sit there waiting for a plane. I'm always early. I don't like being late. It's a German in me. So I get to the airport early and I'm sitting in the airport terminal and I'm waiting for a plane and I'm just watching people as they walk past. You know the one thing I notice above all else? They're weary. They're tired. They're stressed out. And they're in need of rest. They need rest. And that's where the Sabbath comes in. So we are weary, we're tired, we're stressed, and Jesus said, "Come to me, I will give you rest." Now here's the vehicle. Here's the Sabbath. Watch this. Exodus 20, this is 10 Commandments, verse 8. "Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God." Now watch this, watch this, watch this. You go out there into life. You go to work. Maybe your boss doesn't like you. You're struggling to get along with some of the people you work with. And they're taking chunks out of you. It stresses you. It leaves you a bit wounded. You need rest. You come home. Maybe your marriage is under strain. You're not getting on with your wife or your husband as you could. Or the kids are giving you trouble. Oh, we all know about that. It's taking chunks out of you. It's wounding you. It's stressing you. You need rest. It doesn't matter where you go and what you experience in life. In fact, it seems to me that life is almost becoming anti-human. Everywhere we go, we're getting hurt, we're getting chunks taken out of us. We're walking around sleep deprived. And I'm not talking about physical sleep, I'm talking about rest. I'm talking about peace. We don't have it. And God said, "Come to me and I will give you rest." Now watch this. Every day when I open my Bible in the morning, and I do it, and I open my Bible in the evening, and I do it, and I talk to the Lord in prayer, I'm having rest. God is healing me. When I'm in His company, I get rest. He's putting me back together in my Bible study and my prayer. But I can only do it for an hour or so because I've got to go to work, I've got to live. And God knows that about you, and God knows that about me. And so He gives us a Sabbath. And He says, "Lloyd, from Friday night sunset to Saturday night sunset, stop work. Turn the TV off. Get away from the world and spend it with me, and I will give you rest." And I'll guarantee you that if you begin to keep the Sabbath, go to church on Sabbath, worship God on Sabbath, get out into nature on Sabbath, spend time with fellow believers and family on Sabbath, spend more time in prayer on Sabbath. You're in the presence of God and He's giving you rest. That's what the Sabbath's all about. It's about rest. And if I'm the devil and I'm trying to destroy you, the first thing I'm going to take away from you is your rest, your peace. I'm going to try and get you as far away from the Sabbath as I can. You know, the Sabbath is not a Seventh-day Adventist thing. It's a mankind thing. It's a humankind thing. It's for you to give you rest. And Jesus will resurrect you on the Sabbath. Why is it that I can go to church on the Sabbath? And I can preach twice. And I can do Bible studies. And I can fellowship with people and have the busiest day of the week. But because I'm with the Lord on the Sabbath, as He commands, I leave that place refreshed with peace. I am rested. The Sabbath is all about rest. It's about healing that can only come from Jesus for you. What a beautiful gift. We're wounded and we're broken and we're a highly stressed people. Our culture, highly stressed. That's why there's so much road rage out there on our highways. Can't drive down the street, make a mistake without getting bashed because we're a stressed people. We need the Sabbath. Because on the Sabbath we get healing. God comes to us, He puts us back together, and we get peace and we get rest. And I'll tell you something as I close this program today. You can search the whole world over for peace and healing. You can search and go to all your self-help gurus to get you right when it comes to the stress in your life. But you will never find the peace you need until you come to Jesus, invite Him into your heart, into your life, and experience the Sabbath that He's called you to. It's not about a church. It's not about a denomination. It's about Jesus, and it's about you, and it's about peace. You need the Sabbath. You know, I'm not mucking around with this subject. You need rest. You need peace and you need healing. I want to offer you this little booklet. It's called Rest for the Soul. And it'll unpack, it's free, no obligation, and it will unpack for you more and more of what I've been sharing with you today. It'll change your life. You know, my name is Lloyd Grolleman. I'm the Aussie pastor, and I love you. It's easy to love you, actually. But you know what? God loves you a whole lot more. Today, as I close off, I wish you rest. G'day, my name's Lloyd Grolleman. I'm the Aussie pastor, and I am down here at beautiful Narrabeen Beach on one of these fabulous winter Sydney days. It is just fantastic. You know, we're down here, the Manly Seagulls are here and they're training. Now, it's not that I've got anything against Manly, but I'm a Broncos fan, so I better be careful down here. But I'm not here to talk to you about that. I'm from New Hope Church, and we love Jesus. How we do. September 22, 23, we've got a big old-fashioned camp meeting. Yep, we're going to set the tent up, we're going to have music, we're going to have Bible-based preaching. This is going to be a weekend of revival like you haven't had in a long time. So come along. It's going to be a fabulous weekend. Can't wait to see you there.